some incursion into our politics so that we can discuss issues that would make our country better. And before I answer your question, Pastor Itu, I want to also console you, Pastor, of the passing of your lovely wife, who was also a good friend of mine. I have listened to you preach eulogies at funerals, and it would be difficult for me to begin to console you. How do you console a pastor who has such powerful evocation when he speaks about the dead and the living? Therefore, please accept my condolences. And going back to your question, I wrote this book because I felt like history has been denied us in the last 50 years in Nigeria. You notice that until a few months ago, history was abolished from our schools. Our children stopped studying history. And I believe that history is not about just the past. It is about our present, and we must carry our history. We must teach our children, teach the world the history of our people. And it is our duty to give accountable metaphors of our history to ourselves by telling ourselves the truth, telling the world what happened to us, exactly how it happened. And that was the only reason why I wrote this book. I wasn't trying to vilify anybody in the book, but to expose what happened to 3 million people that were killed from 1966 to 1970 in the crisis known as the Biafran War. That was the reason why I wrote this book.
Thank you very much, Okey, for writing the book. Our subject today is True Federalism, a way out for Nigeria. I really want to look at how we can have a truly federal state in Nigeria and see how we can turn it around in Nigeria. What do you think we should be doing in Nigeria, and with federalism, what way did the whole thing start?
The line was a bit fuzzy. I didn't hear you, but I think I get a gist of what you were saying. In my book, certain portions of my book, I described exactly the same question that I think you asked of me. True federalism, the way forward for Nigeria.
The flight has gone. We have a flight for tomorrow.
Maybe I'll go before night. Maybe I'll go before night. Huh?
What? Sorry, okay. I'm getting a bit distracted here. I was wondering what to do. Is it possible that we can reconvene in about an hour? Will people be all off the line so I can get on this flight to Benin and then we start when I get in there? Or will that be totally impossible?
It would be almost impossible. I think we should get onto this and get it over with.
Okay,
we have
all right.
another 40 minutes.
Okay.
Please, if you don't mind.
Okay, no, let them go. Okay, no problem.
Okay.
Okay, let's go ahead, please.
Okay. All right, go ahead.
So what is the issue of federalism in Nigeria, and how do we work out the question of true federalism, and how do we make Nigeria the truly federal state that it should be?
Okay, before I get into how, I think I need to give a little bit of history about what federalism is. And federalism is just a component in our constitution. We started our constitution, the history of our constitution, from 1947. When Arthur Richards had the what they call the national movement, the National Constitution of 1947. This constitution was considered inconsistent with the feelings of most Nigerians in those days. And people agitated against it, nationalists, including Kawo and all the people who were fighting for independence did not reckon with that constitution. And they had an agitation which brought in the Mcpherson Constitution, John Mcpherson, who became governor of Nigeria in 1949, if I recall in history. And this constitution, because of the agitation of the nationalists, involved, consultations with villagers, district heads, provincial, regional, and nationalists, which culminated in the National Conference of 1950, January 1950, which took place in Ibadan. This conference in Ibadan in 1950 resulted in 1951 constitutional arrangement known as the Mcpherson Constitution. This constitution was followed by several other conferences in which it was determined that federalism was to be adopted as the form of government that Nigeria would use in governance. And this small historical sequence would give us an idea of why federalism was chosen. And federalism became a system of government that was based on democratic rules in which power to govern is shared between national, zonal, or in this case, states. The zones or the states are to have total control over their own affairs and destinies. Right now, we have 6 political zones as established by the federating units for the principle of true federalism in Nigeria. And in 1960, from independence, we had a new constitution that was called the Independence Constitution, followed by the 1963 constitution called the Republican Constitution. The 1963 constitution had very similar attributes to the 1960 constitution, except that in the 1960 constitution, we were still aligned to the British system of government, whereby the Queen still remained the ceremonial head of Nigeria. But in 1963, we drew away from that and had a ceremonial president or ceremonial president who became the Queen for Nigeria, or the King for Nigeria. Then came the military in 1967, and they started the whole arrangement for the federal system of government abroad, the unitary system of government, with the 2 coups in 1967. So this is a historical analysis of what true federalism became in Nigeria.
So what do you think went wrong, and why is Nigeria where it is, and why is there this agitation for restructuring, and what do you think Nigeria should do to make governance and leadership in Nigeria as we are now?
Okay, well, if you ask me, I would say I went to the national conference in 2014 that was called by Jonathan. At this conference, we had over 850 pages submission to Jonathan, in which we profiled solutions to the constitutional crisis that Nigeria faced in the last 50 years of independence, since independence. And
you were part of that conference?
I was part of it. I was part of the Southeast delegate to the conference. And in this conference,
How many delegates did they have from the Southeast?
We had about 80 delegates, if you included members of the Secretariat, drawn from,
okay. All right. Go ahead,
all fields, from the academia to politics to traders. And it was quite an inclusive group that we took to the conference. I was head of the Secretariat, drafted the so-called Igbo position to the conference.
Okay, please go ahead.
Yes, so what we submitted to President Jonathan was an exhaustive, almost 900 pages of constitutional issues that I believed would have changed the entire country if those issues were addressed and adopted. Unfortunately, he failed to do so.
Why do you think President Jonathan failed to adopt at the outcomes of that conference?
I think there were so many issues involved in it. I think he lacked the political will to do so. And he was surrounded by people who thought that the country should maintain status quo. Because, I mean, if you look at the issues that were advanced, we talked about so many things. We touched on almost 1,000 issues affecting the country. We talked about, separation of power, citizenship, the devolution of power, revenue sharing, all sorts of things. And certain parts of the country did not want us to abolish derivation, derivation that is still inherent in our constitution today, derived from the 1999 constitution, whereby federal government is retaining over 50% of the revenue coming from certain areas of the country. In the 1963 constitution, from which we drew a lot of the things we used for the 2014 constitution, the documents that we wrote, we had the true federalism, which is the subject for today, where we had 4 regions that were autonomous, divisible, responsible to their own personal needs. And that sort of government was what helped Nigeria to grow. We had healthy rivalries between the regions. The West thrived in agriculture, which was cocoa. The East did their best with palm oil, the North, groundnut. So everybody competed equally. And because what you produced, you used in the development of your areas. But I believe because we have so much reliance on oil today, certain parts of the country didn't want us to go back to that form of government, that system of government where people shared revenue according to what they produced. And, for that simple reason, we are still, living in darkness today.
So, remember of the 2014 conference or discussion at that time. Do you remember what your specific recommendation was?
On what particular issue, please? On
restoring on region and of course on derivation.
Yes, if you look at today's revenue sharing formula, federal government gets, I believe it's 52.6% of the revenue, and the state gets 26-point-something%, and local government getting 20%. We recommended to government, the Southeast delegation, we recommended to the federal government that the states, being the federating units within the zones, the 6 zones, should get at least 50% of the revenue, from which power should devolve from the center and more power residing in the states. And then the local government should get about 20%, and federal government maybe about 35%. That was our recommendation in the revenue sharing formula.
Okay, and this was brought to Jonathan's attention, and do you think that this was part of the reason why he did not implement this recommendation?
I think so, because we made it very clear to him privately and collectively that until the recommendations of the commission, the conference, are implemented, Nigeria was still going to live in darkness. We made it very clear. We showed him evidence. It wasn't just a matter of sending 1,000 pages of very well articulated work, but we met with him. Some of our members met with him and spoke to him and showed him reasons why he must have the will, the political will, to implement the recommendations. I mean, the recommendations were just too many. Let me give you an example. In the area of security, we recommended that there should be 2-tier police system, 2-tier, national police and state police. And all members and personnel of the state policemen and women should be drawn from the states or from the zones. And not, because I said it in one other program that I spoke to the other day, that it's inconceivable to go to Sokoto and draw police personnel, men and women from Sokoto, and post them to Okey, where I am from, and expect them to be able to police the system properly. It's almost impossible to do that. It's almost impossible to do that. They do not understand the language of and the culture of the people that you're sending them to. So for this reason, these things were not done. That's why you have riots all over Nigeria. Policemen are going to the villages that they know nobody in, and they're shooting young people and killing them. These were the recommendations we put together, and these were part and parcel of the true federalism that we're discussing today.
Well, adopted or conference by your committee, was there the questions of these particular things? Did everybody agree and recommend it to Goodluck Jonathan, or were there divisions amongst you? People have contrary opinions, and you couldn't arrive at a conclusion?
No. Of course, you would expect that there would be contrary views and different opinions, even within our own Southeast region. For instance, we wanted the zones to be the federating units under the federation, under true federalism. But one particular state in the Southeast said no, that the states should constitute the federating units under true federalism. And we had disagreements with other zones that came to the Constitutional Conference. Some of them did not agree, but at the end of the day, we had what they call horse trading, we had compromises, and we agreed and sent a general recommendation to the president. And in my opinion, I think that was the best outing ever presented to Nigerians in trying to revise our constitution. And for me, any constitution can be changed. We should not treat it as a sacrosanct document. American Constitution has been revised so many times, and the Constitution is over 400 years. And we are so reluctant to touch our Constitution because people are just afraid of the unknown, and it's so unnecessary.
Your friends on what did you finally
the connection is quite poor. I can hardly hear you, but I don't know if you can hear me.
I can hear you very well.
Okay.
Platform hear me. Can you hear me?
No, it's not going well. It's not going well. Something is wrong. Yes, I can hear you. It's a bit better now. I think it's from your side. You know, I'm in Atlanta. You people in Nigeria, I don't know what you're doing there. I can hear you very well now.
Good. Okay, so what did Canada agree?
What? I can. We cannot hear you at all, Pastor.
Okay.
It's from your side, it's not from you. from their side. Well, I think we're having challenges with communication coming from you guys there, but I can see some pictures. Someone says that connection will be restored back shortly.
You hear me?
I can hear you. I can see your picture as well.
Okay, I can hear you, but you can hear me. I think we.
Everybody says they can hear me clearly, but they can't hear the questions being thrown at me. Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so
No, now you're going round and round again. I heard you clearly 2 seconds ago, but now it's okay. It must be just that your internet strength is a bit weak. Yeah, maybe you can send it, since everybody can hear me, you can send me the questions via chat. I can read them out and then I can answer them. How is that?
You can.
If you send me the questions via chat, since everyone else can hear me, I can read them out and then we take it from there.
Okay. I'll send the questions via chat.
The questions are on the chat. Some of the questions are on the chat already.
Yeah, but they just come in and disappear as well.
Can I verbalize
can you hear me?
Question?
Yes, I can see the chat now.
You can see the chat.
Yes.
What the federation unit will be.
There's a question from Bumi Lawson to everyone.
The question is to you, sir.
Okay, go ahead and ask me the question. I can hear you very clearly.
Go ahead and ask the question.
Good evening. This is Bumi Lawson. Let me read out the question. Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for your presentation and the insights that you shared. My question is around the constitutional reform what are your suggestions for how we should now carry out a constitutional reform? How can we take up the process now to ensure that we have one that is acceptable to most Nigerians? Should we go the route of amendment, that is taking a clause and amending it, or a total overhaul of the Constitution? If amendments, what areas would you consider to be the most urgent things that we should amend in our Constitution other than federalism? Thank you.
Thank you. That's a very good question. I think that we do not need to amend particular sections of the Constitution, since we spent 4 months and billions of dollars in the last conference that took place in 2014. And this conference touched on almost, if not all, aspects of our life. It began from the true federalism to fiscal federalism to democratic governance, presidential system of government, parliamentary system of government, good governance, imperatives for durable democracy, cost of governance, everything you can imagine we touched on. And I have read this document several times, and when we did submit it to President Jonathan, I was thinking that we had done everything that was needed to restructure our country. And the document is still there. The document is still there. All we need to do is to have a leadership that is willing to pick up this document and legitimize it, and make it a living document under the law.
You have a copy of this document, okay?
Oh yeah, the copy is available. I think it's even available. Yeah, I wrote most of it, so I have my own personal copy.
Can I ask everybody who is speaking to please mute their mic? Somebody's on iPhone, Adenuga, please mute your mic. Abiodun Ariyibi, please mute your mic also, and so forth, so that we can reduce the interferences. Abiodun Ariyibi, please mute your mic. Or do you want to ask a question? Okay.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Have any questions, please indicate so that we can take on the question.
The lady that asked the last question, I believe her name was, I don't know, Bumi. And she asked me if there were critical elements of this submission we did that I preferred that we should, address. There are so many of them that, where do you begin to list them? I mean, for instance, we talked about citizenship and the right of—
Can I ask a question? Can I ask a question?
Uncle Johnson, please give us a minute. It was just about concluding on what you were saying. If in a minute or so, I'll call you to ask a question. Go ahead, okay?
We talked about the right of residence, and they call this class dichotomy at the conference. It caused a lot of contentious reactions from members. And in it, we said that if you were born in a place like Lagos, and after 5 years, you should become a citizen of Lagos. And if you were a dweller in Lagos and you've come to Lagos and resided in Lagos for 10 years, you should automatically become a citizen of Lagos. And this question of somebody in Lagos being asked to go home because, and he has lived in Lagos for 40 years. For instance, myself, I've been in Lagos for about 40 years, built my businesses, my homes there. And somebody says to me, hey, go home. We addressed it at the conference and said, we should stop that nonsense. And it's just one part of a critical element of our submission that I think I should answer to Bumi's question.
Thank you. Professor Johnson Ekpere, please. Can you please take up your question? Professor Johnson Ekpere.
Thank you. Question is,
can't
I
hear
put the
you.
question
Yeah, go
on,
ahead.
on the chat page, but I don't think it's seen. I had put
Okay,
the
go ahead.
question on the chat, but can you hear me?
I can hear you very clearly. Go ahead, sir.
Very good. Why is it not possible to, well, let me put it say why. Is it possible to operate a federal system within the framework of the existing 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory?
Yes, it is possible. It's not in the nomenclature, if you ask me. What we need to do is to define what federalism is, the true federalism is devolution of power.
Didn't we know the meaning? Don't we know that?
I think
why is it so difficult for our legislators to understand the meaning of true federalism, and they are talking about different forms of government that they are not even familiar with? The issue to me is not whether it is parliamentary or whatever. If they are interested in making sure that this country functions, that constitution can actually be made operational within a federated system. They are defining what is a federation and all of it. It's all waste of time. So you've said it. If they can devolve, if they can reduce the concurrent and the exclusive lists in such a way that the appropriate responsibilities are devolved, that's it. Why is that a problem? I can't see it.
I understand what you're saying, but if you look at the quality, and I'm sorry to say this, if you look at the quality of people that we have elected, some say selected to represent us at the center, you would understand why they are confused as to what true federalism means. For me, true federalism means that there would be component elements within the federation whereby the states or the zones become the federating units. They have their independent and autonomous constitution that are not inconsistent with the federal constitution. For instance, in the 1963 constitution, the Eastern region had their own embassy, so to speak, in London, in the UK. And they had what they called the agent general, who was like the ambassador. We operated that system and it worked for us. Today, the center wants to hold power exclusively. That's why they have this bogus so-called exclusive list that we must cut. And at the conference that we just finished in 2014, we addressed aggressively the issue of this exclusive list, whereby we cut a lot of cheese or meat from it and submitted to government. But the reluctance of government is still there. When Buhari came, he inherited what we submitted and told us that his duty was not to change Nigeria's constitution, despite the fact that his party, the APC, told the entire country that we were going to restructure Nigeria. How do you restructure Nigeria without addressing constitutional issues?
So Buhari said his duty was not to change the constitution.
Oh yeah, it's a well-known statement by him.
So what in your opinion do you think we should do to encourage the government to look again at this issue of the constitution? What can the general public do, or what can the average Nigerian do to encourage government to look again at this issue of our national constitution?
What we can do is to go back to good governance, democratic governance, whereby we can elect people who understand that real change must happen to our system of governance. Once we do that, we have proper participation in politics that exemplifies equity, justice, fairness, and the rule of law. Transparency, accountability. Once we have all those things in place, we can now elect a leader that has sense, that wants to change our country for the better. If we do not do these things, we'll just be running around in circles and circles and circles until the demise of our country.
Can I ask one more question, okay?
Okay, yes. Yeah.
What, in your opinion, will happen if a state develops a state constitution consistent with true federalism, even if it does not appropriate any of the things in the concurrent list and runs with that constitution in the governance of his state, what do you think will happen? Would that be construed as treason, or will that be construed as a state that is taking up responsibility, being a state within the federating units?
It would be unconstitutional to do so.
Why?
Because our country is governed by laws and norms and authorities. For a state to get up one day and say, okay, we run a different constitution, are you going to tell the IG that you have your own police commissioner who answers to the IG? Let us start from there. You know, it would be inconsistent with.
In other words, okay, the existing constitution does not recognize a federation.
Oh yeah, of course, the existing constitution does not. Even if it does, it is a fake one. It is a
why is it called? Why are we referred to as the Federal Republic of Nigeria?
Because that was what
they
Didn't hear that last part of that question, but I think what you are saying is that why are we referred to as the Federal Republic of Nigeria? Okay, I don't know if you want to answer that.
I've lost you on. Okay, I'm back now.
We lost each other on Instagram, so if you.
But oh gosh, I don't know what's going on. I lost you on Instagram. If you can get on it again, and I'll connect. Are you there on Instagram?
No, I can't.
Technology.
Can you hear me? Okay.
I can hear you.
Okay. All right. So he was asking, why are we then referred to as a federation when we are not really a federation, a set of federating units or whatever it is? You know.
I think that question should be addressed to Abdul Salami in 1999, when we all know that this is a unitary kind of government. How can you call us a federation when the core principles of true federalism are not being adhered to, and you call us a federation? We are not a federation.
So who do you think is really responsible for not encouraging us to go back to being the federation in 1963? It was Iransi that started this issue of a unitary government. I think Gawan continued in sort of like manner. Gawan continued in sort of like manner, and successive military administration has continued, and none of the political, or should I call them, none of the political administrations has had the encouragement or the willpower to change this thing. Why do you think that is? Where's the pressure coming from that's refusing for there to be a change? Okay, did you hear my question?
I got your question. It's a combination of of factors, beginning from the unwillingness of the people in power to abrogate the tendencies of being in control of other people's resources. That's what I think is responsible for that. Otherwise, how do you expect a military man with a gun to relinquish his complete hold on the entire resources of the country? So they call it federation, but it's not federation. That's what I think is responsible for it.
So largely the military.
Oh yeah, definitely. And largely the military, and the military is, some of our civilians are still in their military togas.
Okay, so you touched on an issue that I need to sort of get you to elucidate on and expand on. This issue of choosing or getting the right kind of people to be in leadership in Nigeria? What sort of process do you think we need to go through to ensure we get the right kind of people on the leadership platform, on the ballot in Nigeria?
Well, I did a small paper which I called, inviting people of your sort to be involved in politics. And some of my friends answered me and said, how do you want us to go and deal with this toggery? It's delicate. How do you get involved in a system that is corrupted to the point where 90% of the participants are not vested or interested in proper democratic governance attitude? That's a huge problem. I don't even have the solution to it. But if you go back and read my book, I talked about, what you're doing now, getting people
can I just try to?
Can I finish, please? Getting people like
Yes.
Pastor Itwa to put such platform that we are exchanging ideas now, attracting people of good conscience to come together and discuss the problems of Nigeria and try to profile solutions.
Yeah,
I
the
didn't
webinar.
get that. I think I missed part of it.
Oh. You are on to okay?
Yes, what didn't you get? What I said that you asked a question how we can change the paradigm or the shift. And I said that just like what you're doing now, the platform that you've set up, we have to multiply it so that people can, of conscience, good conscience, can come together and discuss our issues.
Let me use that word. Yeah.
And discuss our problems, discuss our issues, and find a way to get people involved in politics. People of good conscience are discouraged because of the kind of politics that's being played in Nigeria.
Can I just make a contribution? Can I just make a contribution? Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you very well.
Okay, I agree with you 100%. Yesterday, there was a webinar, either yesterday or 2 days ago, in which Ezekwesili, Professor Soludo, and Professor Joga and others participated. Mm-hmm. And the outcome of that meeting is not too different from what we are suggesting. So I'm almost positive that there are persons of good conscience who will want to risk their lives in this dangerous arena of politics. Mm-hmm. But and secondly, during the last elections, I thought we were beginning to have a direction when at least we had 3 people, any of whom could be president. But instead of them coming together so that they can form a new government that will work, they were at each other's throats. And so they all failed. So even the problem of galvanizing group of intelligent, well-seasoned individuals to get on into politics is in itself a problem. But I agree with you, that would be the first thing to do, try to get like-minded people to get involved. But much more than that is the question of educating the masses of this country as to what is actually wrong, so that when they have to come to vote, they will vote for the intelligent person who's not a money bag, but who is a person of conscience, the kind of individual you're talking about, who will go to Abuja or will go be in the state legislature and do the right things for the people of his constituency. That effort is going to take at least 16 years to materialize. And so one will suggest that people like Itwa and others who are now who still have some time left here on earth, who are putting these systems together, should not be looking at the short term, because we're not going to be able to dislodge these people in the next 4 years. You've got to start from the states, putting your persons in the right places in the states and working up from there. It is, to use Gawa's word, it's a task that must be done. And if those who are 16 and below don't take the risk at this point, there will be no hope.
I agree with you absolutely. There will be no hope. I like that last sentence. There will be no hope. And I am so pessimistic about Nigeria that everyone around me is worried. And I'm sorry to say it, I do not see the light at the end of the tunnel. I think we've gone beyond some kind of redemptiveness, but not totally. But if you ask me, the decay is deep. It's deeper than you can even imagine. And I say it with all measures of respect for everybody listening to us on this network today. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, but we have lost the moderator.
Okay, I believe that we can carry on discussing this issue. Is an issue that we can spend a whole year talking about and we would not finish it. I mean, I would like to steer us back to the element of our topic, true federalism. For me, it entails us being able to have a mutual non-interference by all tiers of government, federal, zonal, state, local government. It would be appropriate for federal government not to tell the governor of Anambra State what to do, except in certain areas where federal government should be involved. Let's say security, national security, external security, customs, immigration. Those are what I believe should be left in the exclusive list, just about 10 items there. But other issues should be left to the federating units to handle. Until this is done, I think this is where we have to start reconstructing our country, restructuring our country. A true federalism, the power of the central government should be narrowly circumscribed and whittled down to issues that affect the entire country, not for IG to come from Abuja, go to Port Harcourt and be telling Wike what to do. And then he leaves the next day. Wike is enmeshed in battles that he doesn't even have the might to battle, to fight. So we have to go back to true federalism. I'm happy that Itwa chose this topic. And if we can discuss it, I have the solution to our problem through true federalism.
Okay, thank you very much, okay. I'm going to just drop two questions in the hat and then we'll try and get questions from as many people as possible. Number one, I think one of the fears of the federal is that if you have governors and so forth controlling state police as such, they may abuse state police power or even use part of the state police power to influence the outcomes of elections, especially in their states. I think that's one germane thing.
Pastor Itwa, before you continue, this argument was put on the table when we were in Abuja. For more than a week, we were going back and forth. Do you know the answer? What is good for the goose is good for the gander. So the federal government can use IG to intimidate state governors. Why can't the state governors use their own IG to intimidate local government chairmen? I mean, that's what I'm saying. You can't have it your way and not let them have it their way. We have to find a way to streamline these issues and let them play out. To sit in Abuja and say, oh, they don't want to use it too. So Buhari is saying that because he has control of the IG, he's subverting democracy, he's subverting our electoral process. That is a big question. So, that shouldn't even come into play. Let us leave the governors to do what they have to do. In every system, there are checks and balances. There are local houses of assembly. Let them check the governor's excesses. Let the Senate check the president's excesses. If we will still have the Senate, because some people are saying we want the parliamentary system of government. So, you know.
What system did you recommend in 2014, the parliamentary or the presidential?
Parliamentary and one term of 6 years for presidency.
Parliamentary, one term of 6 years. What about the houses? Was it unicameral house or dual houses?
No, it was unicameral. And
just one house?
One house and full-time.
Full-time?
Full-time, yes, full-time.
Okay. Not part-time. So yeah, maybe you said you have the solution to this our issue. So what is the solution you are recommending, and how do we get that solution implemented? Okay.
The solution is in the conference recommendations. Okay. 850 pages. It's not a one stopgap solution. And the way to implement the solution is proper leadership. Leadership vested with good intentions. If you have primordial interest, you have tribal interest, you have religious interest, you want to favor your people, you're a bigot, we're not going to be able to implement those processes because they are all encompassing. Not all of them favored us from the Southeast, and not all of them favored people from the North, but we have to reach compromises. Listen, when we were in Abuja for 4 months, I abandoned everything that I was doing. We were meeting like 20 hours every day. Meeting with people from the South, from the North, every night, sometimes into 4 o'clock in the morning, debating the issues, finding solutions. And we found the solutions. But Jonathan was weak, and I'm sorry to say it. He abrogated his role as a leader, and that was what caused the problems we're having in our country today. You know, I'm not here trying to vilify him, but he didn't have good advisors. You could have told him. He gave the documents to Okey Mohammed, who was the Attorney General. I think he put it in his dustbin and went to sleep. It was not in his interest. He wanted to maintain the status quo, and that is where we find ourselves today. The problems are heavy. We're in trouble.
So why did he take you through all that process if you didn't have the willpower or the je ne sais quoi to actually implement it? Why did he waste so much time and resource of everyone? Because
he was under pressure from reformists, people like us, who told him that we must change the sequence of things in Nigeria. So he said, okay, let us do it. I think he did it for doing sake. And if you ask me personally. Because if he had any, do you know how much they spent to prosecute the conference? It was a lot of money. So you know, we need to go and sit back and ask Jonathan why.
Well, can I make a comment?
Of course, I wanted to make comments as well.
Talking about the meeting.
Well, okay, no, go ahead. Because I am hearing things that everybody knows. Most people know some of the things that Okey is talking about. The issue is that when you refer to, let me not say so, we don't actually have the kind of leader whose influence you can say pervades the entire country to have done what Okey is asking to be done. We didn't have it, and I'm not seeing it ahead of me in the next 16 years. Secondly, I don't believe that the president in this present dispensation, given the laws, can in fact change the constitution. He has to do, I think, he has to send whatever bill he wants to the National Assembly. And I'm still waiting for a competent president who will do that, send it to the National Assembly, compose as it is today, and get results. Because as Okey himself said, we have people in the National Assembly who have no idea what a federation is. And therefore, when you give them a document like the one that was prepared, they wouldn't read it. Even if they read it, they won't understand it. So
right.
this is why I am suggesting a kind of slow movement by those who are interested in changing this system to start from the very bottom and work themselves up slowly by going through the ballot box, get their people into places, both at the local government, state, and at the federal National Assembly, to bring about this change. If you're thinking about it in the next, that 2023, you're going to come up with a constitution that works, I believe it's utopian. I'm sorry, I will talk again.
Thank you very much. It's just that there's quite a few other people on the platform who would like to make a comment or ask a question. But what I'm going to ask Okey right now, before we take questions or comments from other people, is this. What process, here we are now in Nigeria as of today, 2020, the 12th day of November, and we have an election coming in 2023 and so on and so forth. What does the average Nigerian need to do across the nation to ensure that come 2023, we have the kind of government or leader that will be able to take very, very good decisions for the benefit of the majority of Nigerians? What do we need to do? Each person that's on this platform, each person that's a Nigerian, you yourself, Okey, what are the pieces that we need to move to all collectively try to ensure that we choose the right person as our leaders in 2023?
Thank you very much. That's a very critical question, but in my opinion, it's a longer process than a short-term solution. How do you begin to change the mindset of a 30-year-old? We have to go back to the grassroots. And let me tell you what I've done. You asked me me personally. I woke up some 5 years ago and I realized that until we go back to the basics from elementary school to teach our children the moral upbringing of life, what I call moral rearmament, that was what I started this small talk with, which I think is what Pastor Itua is doing. Until we do that and we begin to build up again, and without old horses like us who are corrupt, alienated from righteousness, we have to all go for the system to wake up again. But are we doing the necessary things at the grassroots level? I went back to my village and I started building up elementary schools, because I went to one of the elementary schools in my village and I noticed that pupils were sitting on the floor. Oh my goodness, the degradation of education, the structural decay. Forget about the teaching processes worse than the structural, but the structural is what the naked eye would see. And I put together some money that I saved and I started building up these schools again. I built up about 3 or 4 of those. One was a 3-story building, very modern. And I said, by 10 years, I would have built 100 schools. The structure. Then I started employing teachers. I'm talking for me. I'm not advertising myself, but these are the things where we need to do individually. I started employing new teachers and teaching them the proper ways of teaching our children. Changed the curriculum. I even introduced French and Spanish in elementary school. Some form of discipline. Cut your nails. The simple things we did as children that people don't even care about today. Prayer in school. Teaching the young kid that you must be afraid of God. You must be afraid of something before you even learn. How do you expect a child to learn in an atmosphere of decadence, degradation? The roofs are leaking. The floors are busted. There were no toilets. So we started building. I'm going to send you a link to what we're doing. I set up a private, without raising 1 penny from anyone, my own private funds. And we started building. And we started teaching these children in the small elementary schools that we have. If Nigerians can do these things in their respective homes, then there will be a future for Nigeria in the next 50 years. Not in 3 years, not in 4 years. The criminals all over the place. These politicians, are you kidding me? Where? How are they going to change our country for us? They do not care. Look at the small revolution they had in Lagos the other day. They started killing people. Would you send your child out on the streets to be killed like a dog? I mean, go and read my book. The people that have not read this book should go and read it and read about Biafra. Read about Biafra. Read about the sufferings of the Igbo people. Read about their resilience, how they bounced back. It is the story for Nigeria. It is not the story for restructuring and federalism. The true spirit of Nigeria should be found in the East. Go there and find the spirit and the soul of this country. Once you find it, we would change our country. We would change the trajectory of evil, pure evil that Nigeria has become in the last 50 years. And people are just walking around like nothing happened. They killed 3 million people and got up the next morning like nothing happened. Left our country in dissolution. I wrote this book. I was angry when I wrote it, and I believe people should go and read it and use it as what I call the Bible of redemption. And once that is done, we begin to find peace in our country. Do you think the soul of 3 million children killed out of starvation, killed with British and Russian bullets, are just resting in peace? I do not think so. And anyone listening to me, this is not a tribal talk, because I'm a true Nigerian and I believe in Nigeria. Those who believe in Nigeria should go and have what they call pertinence, reconstruct their mind to the evils of the past and say to themselves, where did we go wrong? I have an epiphanic feeling what we're going through today in Nigeria is as a result of the evil perpetrated from 1966 to 1970 that saw the killing of 3 million Igbo people and Southeasterners. And we got up like no rehabilitation. I was in the war. I was a 13-year-old Biafran soldier. If you have a child who's 13 years old, imagine him with a gun on his back, sleeping in the jungle, in the forest, eating no food, eating rats and grass for 3 days. Didn't go to school. We got up, the war ended, everybody walked away like nothing happened. No rehabilitation, no reconstruction. I didn't even get a therapy. Dead bodies all over around me. Please go read this book again. For those of you who have not read it, it is available in Nigeria, in all the bookstores. And Itwa knows how to, Itwa bought several copies, and I thank him for that. So, I'm a bit emotional about what I'm saying, but the topic, we should go to it. But before we revisit it again, we have to purge our minds, purge our spirits, purge our souls of the evils of the past, the wickedness of the past. It's too much. And I thank everybody for listening to me. This is just apart from the major subject we are here to discuss today.
No, I think we should look at issues of this book a little bit. Part of all that we're saying, building a new Nigeria, let's not just narrow down on the part of it. And I'd like to ask a few questions. I'm going to try and encourage as many people who want to read this book to do so. Already 1 or 2 people have asked me for copies, and I've sent them copies. And I have access to Okey's man on the ground here in Nigeria, so that you can get a copy of the book. It's very, very lucidly written, very, very graphic, very, very picturesque, very, very detailed in terms of expression and description of times and situations. One thing I know Okey did was tell us that his mother is extremely beautiful. So we're probably going to wake up from the grave and take another look at her. He couldn't stop telling us how beautiful and how fashionable his mother was. And I'm sure he was her first. But nonetheless, you can, and his next thing Okey did was that he beat a white man. He beat a white man in the trouser or in the leg. So Okey also has very, very strong teeth. So everybody be careful. Hadiza, I must congratulate you on coping with Okey and his teeth. But anyway, let's, that's just on a lighter mood. Okay, coming back to this Biafra, the horrors of war. Is that picture on the front cover, is that you, or is it a representation of someone that looks like you?
It is a mystery for you to find out someday.
Okay, I will find out. I'll pray to the Lord Almighty Jesus Christ and he will reveal it to me. Okay. But nonetheless, I think that war could have been prevented. And do you think, what was the spirit behind that war? And what was Nigeria trying to do? And what could we have done in terms of rehabilitation and reconstruction? I thought in those days, a lot of government was talking about 3 R's. Gawan said, no victor, no vanquished. There were lots of rehabilitation, reconstruction, rekinikon. 3 R's, they said. I can't remember the last R. Please educate me. What could that war have been averted? That's number one. Number two, what was the spirit behind that war? What were people trying to do? And number three, what are the things that we can do now, today, or we should have done to heal the wounds of the war and totally reconstruction, rehabilitation, and something else? What could we have done to really pacify and heal the wounds of the war? Please, okay.
Let me, the causes of the war, that war, are just so many. But in my opinion, I wrote this book as a personal experience of that war. 90% of what I put in the book was my personal experience. And I avoided being cynically critical of individuals or even groups that fought in that war. But in saying that, I would like to reconnect to one of the major causes of that war was British treachery in Nigeria. And I'll tell you that. When they came to Nigeria to colonize Nigeria, one of the first points of call was the Igbo land. And they didn't like the Igbo because they thought we were uppity, we didn't want to be servitude, we didn't want to serve them. And they promised themselves that they were going to punish the Igbo. I'm telling you this. Look at the Constitution of Nigeria, how it was written. Who wrote the Constitution? The British. They conducted the census. They counted cows and goats. I'm not trying to abuse anybody. They planted in the heads of Nigerians hatred, corruption. My father was a journalist. He was editor of West African Pilots and so many newspapers. So he was one of the people that drove away the British from Nigeria. And if you read my book, you will see I didn't want to talk much about his activities, but I found out from him that the British hated people from the Eastern Nigeria because we were at the forefront of independence fights.
Mom stinks from the car.
No, okay, I've already put them in the room.
Please, John, please mute your mic. Please mute your mics. Thank you.
So when the British came, they made up their minds that they were going to align with the North against the South. Because
Stop. Can you hear me okay?
No, we can't.
You can't hear him.
No, we can't. He's stuck, I think.
He's stuck. Olu, Shoni number, okay. Call him. I think he's stuck. This time the problem is from his side.
Yes, the problem is from Atlanta. It's not only Nigeria that has a internet problem.
Okay, you see now, the problem is from your side this time. Maybe because you hello? Okay, are you back? He's frozen. Okay, he's off. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I hope we're enjoying this discourse. We're running a bit out of time, but we're learning quite a bit. Biafra, the horrors of war. Okey Anueyiagu. He's written this book from deep emotions and his own experiences. As a 13-year-old in the face, and what he's been trying to do is to reconstruct the piece of the war and put it back together. And I'm trying to get him to let us see what he thinks the war, the course of the war, the outcomes of the war, what happened to everyone, and what we should do now as a nation to really move forward in a proper way. And he was alluding to the fact that he thinks that the fundamental issue there was British treachery. I've always known that the British never really did have a very, very good interest and desire to see Nigeria flourish. But I think this is the first time that the word treachery is being used. And I think he's very, very concerned about that. And he was just trying to open that up when we lost him. He said that the British couldn't stand the attitude of the Easterners in particular, and they had made up their minds they were going to deal with them, okay? I think some of these issues are the foundations of Nigeria's problem. And these are the issues that we probably all need to discuss as mature people, as a mature nation. Those who we need to apologize to, we need to apologize to them. Those we need to encourage, we need to encourage. Those we need to reassure, we probably need to reassure them. And then we all now need to sit around a table and agree, number one, Nigeria belongs to all of us. Number two, we all have equal interest in Nigeria. Number three.
Hello, can you hear me? I'm back.
Okay, you're back. Yes, welcome back. I'm just trying to fill in for you. Well, okay. You see, it's not only in Nigeria that
is your NEPA that caused it. I can't hear you anymore. What's going on?
In Atlanta, maybe with less. You were saying that liking Easterners, the Igbos in particular. Please go ahead. We can't hear you.
I'm here.
Okay, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. What was the question? Go ahead and ask me, just briefly.
I was asking you about the Biafran War. Number one, okay. The cost thereof. Number two, could it have been avoided? Number three, what it has resulted in. And number four, what can we do about it, about the situation going forward? And you said that the cause was British treachery or something like that.
Yeah, it could have been avoided. There were several factors, but the major factor was that we had instigators from outside who put in the minds of a lot of Nigerians that the Igbo people were the problem. For instance, the 1966 January 15th coup that was, led by Nzogu. He was an Igbo man. There was Ifajuna. In my book, I listed 14 key players of the coup. 14. Only 2 of them were of Igbo extraction. The other 12 were Hausas, Yorubas, and Midwesterners that planned that coup. So how could it have been an Igbo coup? And they killed, certain politicians, which was unfortunate. They had no reason to do that. If you were in the military and you felt ideologically displaced, resign and join politics. You don't have to perform a coup and kill innocent people, even if you did not believe in what they were doing. So they tagged it an Igbo coup and killed in the north. I barely escaped with my life. I mean, read that book. Killed 50,000 Igbo within 6 months of that coup. And we ran like dogs. We ran away from the north and went to the east. And the war came there again and followed us. The war was avoidable, but the circumstances surrounding the war were dubious circumstances, and I'm not saying it because I was involved in the war, but I saw that war live. And if you have stayed in the trenches for as long as I did with a gun in your back and you were 13 years old, you would never want to fight another war. It is gruesome. It is, my brother, it is crazy. So, the war could have been avoided, but the people who engineered that war had their eyes on ruling Nigeria forever through their proxies in the north. Yes, simple and short. They wanted to get into our oil fields, which they did. The Russians came and gave airplane, jet fighters, ammunition to Nigeria. What was their interest in the war, for goodness sake? Why couldn't the Soviet Union stay in where Soviet Union was? And, the war was fought. And they said, no victor, no vanquished. Have you been to the East lately? You will see vanquished people. My father got 20 pounds to attend to 9 members of his family. With all due respect, he was a millionaire in the 60s. He got 20 pounds to feed his family. He was so despondent that he swore that he would never work again in his life. He stayed in his village until he died at the age of 100. So, you know, this story is abound, too many stories about that war. And I think the healing point for Nigeria is to revisit the 3-year war and the atrocities of that war and retrace our steps back to healing the nation. I don't believe in the IPOB thing. You will see nowhere in my book where I talked about it. I talked about the war. I talked about the healing process. And I talked about how we can become our brother's keepers. One more time. Simple and short.
Yeah, can you please expatiate a little bit on what Nigeria can do to heal the Easterners, the Igbo people, and the direct victims of that war? What could we have done, and what could you have played on his return back from exile to ensure that the healing process was thoroughly dealt with?
Good question. What we can do now is, I wrote in my book that we need to set up a commission to be called the Truth, Reconciliation, and Rehabilitation. 1,240 innocent children and women and old men were massacred in Asaba in cold blood. Nobody has gone to them to say, we are sorry. Just because they were Igbo and Christians. I have to add that. I'm not afraid to say what I'm saying. I'm not ashamed. You know, they were killed in cold blood. Nobody has gotten up one day to go to Asaba and say, oh, we are sorry. Oh, we are sorry. That's where we have to start. We start from there and find out why people from the Southeast, people who speak Igbo, are discriminated against anywhere in Nigeria, despite their enterprise. When the Second World War ended in 1945, America, being a wise country then, I don't know about today, gathered all the brilliant engineers and scientists from Germany, from Japan, from all over the world, and used them as the bedrock of industrialization in America. That's what you see today happening. When the war ended, they locked up Igbo engineers, Igbo scientists. Some ran away, and they made sure that they were disenfranchised. Why would you do that? Till tomorrow, they're still disenfranchised. People are just, you know, afraid to speak what I'm speaking about. I've written it in my book. Go and buy this book and read it. Some people say to me, don't write it, or they're going to kill you. How many times are we going to die? I lost the fear of death when I was 13 years old. There's nothing to fear about again. Speak the truth. And this is what you preach from your altar every day. And that is why I agreed to come and speak on this your forum. It's a noble forum. And I respect you for that, Pastor Itwa.
Thank you, my brother. Thank you very much. That's very, very encouraging. And we will all still continue to try to speak the truth. And like you said, one shouldn't be afraid to die. How many times are we going to die? And I think that's part of the challenge in Nigeria today. Very, very few bold people, very, very few sincere people, very, very few courageous people. Again, because a lot of people, our fortunes are tied a little bit to the people in power. But there's a good friend of mine, a politician from Bayelsa State, who would like to say something. Kamala Okara, can I please have you make your quick comment? Kamala. Please unmute yourself and speak.
Yes, thank you very much, Pastor Itwa. First, thank you for creating this forum. And I want to completely, first of all, agree with a lot of what Okey has said. Okay, Anueyiagu. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but I want to agree with everything.
If this is Kamala that went to law school with my wife, you should know how to pronounce my name.
Forgive me. Your
I
wife was then.
I remember
your
you
wife
from
was
30,
then.
30 years ago.
Your wife was then still Hadiza Dankaro.
Oh, no. Now you see, I haven't seen you in 30 years, but your voice is clear.
Thank you very much. I wasn't sure you'd remember. You have a fantastic memory.
That's how I remembered about the war. I wrote everything down in that book.
In fact, you've just authenticated why a 13-year-old, the recollections of a 13-year-old many years after could be, as Pastor Itwa said, very lucid. I'm going to certainly get a copy of the book. You know, I just wanted to make a few comments in addition. And before I say that, I hope Hadiza is very well. I haven't also seen her in all these many years.
She's somewhere around here. Let me call her to show her face and disappear again. Hadiza, one of your schoolmates is on the phone. So Kamala, see Hadiza?
Oh, wow, she hasn't changed at all. You've done a fantastic job. Nice to see you. Very well. So I was going to say,
my technical director.
Oh, fantastic. I was going to say that clearly, I think one of the big, unfortunate events is the fact that on the issue of restructuring, that we have not done anything with the 2014 report, which was put together by all those who came together to discuss, debate, and agree what the future of Nigeria should look like. So that on the issue of restructuring, I don't think that we really have an option other than to address fundamentally. Can everyone hear me? Because we seem to have lost Okey.
No, I'm here. I can hear you very well.
Okay. So I think it's important that in terms of our country and its diversity and the fact that it's made up of so many nations, we can't really run away from the subject of restructuring. It is so vital to allow us as a nation, give ourselves that breathing space for our diversity. So I totally agree with you. And I think one of the things going forward is that we must devote a lot of our time and energy to the whole subject of restructuring. On the second subject, which you also spoke about, which is Biafra and the need for the healing process. I agree with you, and we must all, as Nigerians, look for ways to ensure that it is on the front burner, because a nation that can't address some of its past, no matter how gory or how painful or how unjust it may have been, can't, to my mind, make meaningful progress, because part of what has hampered us in making meaningful progress. Just look at what happened with the NSAS protests and then the shootings thereafter, and the uncertainty as whether people died or did not die, or all that back and forth. And then today we now hear of people's bank accounts being frozen or being, all that doesn't speak of the necessity for listening to each other, addressing grievances as they are, and looking for solutions. So I wanted to just say that I totally agree with you, and these issues should be what should be on the front burner, because if we don't have a nation that has at its foundation justice, then we really can't go forward. So that's just my humble contribution, and nice once again to reconnect with you after all these many years. Thank you.
Yeah, please, thank you, and please stay in touch. Very, very appropriate things that you said there. And I believe, let me just add something that I think is an eloquent contribution to what you said. I believe that no matter what part of the divide one finds him or herself, that Nigeria can never evolve until we acknowledge the evils that have been the element of our character to an extent, from what the Igbo people and Easterners, other Easterners, have for long been at the receiving end of the evil. When this happens, an easy and clear logic would follow. For me, the logic is simple, that Nigeria may have redeemed themselves through what I might attempt to call an evolution of character, meaning that redemptive hearts and the minds of the people may have evolved past the old impulse to do evil. I mean, I keep using the word evil because, I mean, if you saw what we saw during that war, people who live in Lagos, they live in Abuja, they don't understand the gravity of wars, the sort that we fought. Until today, if you Google it, the Biafran War was still the most heinous war ever fought on any continent of the world. More people died in Biafra than that died in Vietnam, that died in Hiroshima, combined. Hunger killed more than bullet killed. And can you imagine if you haven't eaten in a month, how you would feel? It is this type of moral evolution that Pastor Itwa is entrenching that I see as what would save our country, that what would transform our country. But we have to confess our evil before we move on.
Okay, so one of the things you are really advocating is this Truth and Reconciliation Committee.
And rehabilitation. Commission.
Can I have that word again? Truth and
Reconciliation, Rehabilitation Commission.
Truth, Reconciliation and Rehabilitation
Commission.
How come a lot more Igbo people are not sort of advocating for this thing and insisting that this is the way we should go? Or why isn't there a serious collective unit of Igbo people actually taking this request? Do you know why there is? Well,
the Igbo by character is non-parochial. For instance, my wife is from the north. 20 years after that war, and you know my wife, and you know her family, I got up and I married her. I didn't care if she was from the north, a Muslim or anything. And this is the way the Igbo spirit works. After the war, less than a year after they killed 3 million people, we went and moved into Zungeru, to Malumfashi in Katsina, the innermost part of Nigeria. We went back like nothing happened. This is the Igbo spirit. This should be the Nigerian spirit. Whether you like the Igbo or not is inconsequential to me. The spirit of the Igbo man, you have to read my book because I analyzed it. How come I talked about it as a pastor? I don't remember what page in the book. I'm going to find it and I'll let you go and look at it. If you have that book, maybe you can, I don't know if you have time. Let me look for it. Where I talked about the Igbo forgiving spirit. Oh my goodness. You have to go read it. That after 3 million Igbo people were killed and slaughtered, like nothing has ever happened, they forgave Nigeria. I don't know if they forgot the war, but they moved on. And I asked myself in the book, why did they have this spirit of forgiveness? Is it because they are weak, docile, stupid? But I had to veer it into their fear of God. Because if you practice religion, you have to practice what is in the Bible. Forgive and forget and move on. But, somebody told me that the Fulani pride themselves in saying that they neither forget nor forgive. But I think that's not good. We forgive. If we didn't forgive, why would I go to the north to live? Why would they go to Kafanchan to live, despite the fact that the history of their slaughter and massacre still very fresh?
Move this thing.
Okay, would it be in part 8, Biafra and Nigeria, Lessons of the War and the Future of the People?
Yes, it would be in the epilogue.
It might be in the epilogue. Okay, all right.
In the epilogue.
I will really.
Is on page 247. Second paragraph.
Okay.
Second paragraph. If you read it out to our audience, maybe they can understand. 247, second paragraph.
247. Okay, let me, second paragraph. Let me read it very quickly.
Okay.
And then we 247, second paragraph.
Yes.
There are many paradoxes about Nigeria's dreadful war, but the most seemingly absurd or self-contradictory was the ability of the Igbo to forgive and virtually forget the torments and the agonies of the war. This facility to regain equanimity in the wake of unspeakable atrocities and dehumanizing scars inflicted on them is a remarkable feat, one hardly paralleled in the history of genocide, repression, and persecution in the world. Let me take the second paragraph. To speculate on the reason for this is to delve into another chapter of human psychology. Is it that the Igbo are a special breed and species of human beings that bear no malice? Are they culturally disposed against harboring any form of hate for their tomorrow? For their tormentors, I beg your pardon. Perhaps there is something in the Igbo DNA that activates a forgiving nature, a natural God-given ability to endure egregious, cruel acts and aggravated malice without reciprocating in kind.
Go
For
ahead.
me, it's punctilious and scrupulous dissection. For me, a punctilious and scrupulous dissection of the Igbo's forgiving spirit, even extended to people who promised and delivered death at the doorsteps of the Igbo, serves as a worthy exercise. At the very least, this reflection enables one to credit the Igbo collectively for this special moral cum social attribute. Could religion have played a major part in forging a forgiving nature among the Igbo? Even in pre-colonial times, the Igbo had a sense of a supreme God, often called Chukwu. But they operated an heterogeneous spiritual order that featured allegiances to a variety of deities, with the earth goddess representing the center of their moral universe. Today, the Igbo are relatively homogeneous in religious matters, being mostly Christians. Even in the old traditional era, the Igbo were widely known to practice their religion and adhere to their belief systems with fervor and zeal. Despite the various liturgical practices and methods of worship among the various faiths, the Igbo generally believe in one God and have maintained a non-confrontational, non-violent, and almost passive behavior in their followership. What some may call passivity can be ascribed to a deep-seated fidelity to the scriptural doctrine of turning the other cheek and forgiving even the perpetrators of the most iniquitous and beastly actions against them.
Okay.
I think I will stop there. I believe very strongly that when you forgive, you win. And I remember the teachings in the Bible on forgiveness as a tool for redemption, transformation, and peace. That's really, really deep. Okay, really, really deep. And I really, really appreciate your thoughts, your comments, and your efforts at putting all this together, and your deep passion, which I didn't quite realize, for Nigeria, especially having spent such a lot of time and energy in putting the 850-page document together. I just want to ask you for a parting shot. I don't know if there's anybody else who has a quick question or comment as we begin to in the next few minutes. I want to ask you for a parting shot. Where do we go from here in terms of our nation, Nigeria? First of all, let me reiterate that Dr. Okey has asked that everyone who is capable and competent begin to almost self-govern and self-contribute and take our destinies in our own hands in Nigeria in terms of being our neighbor's keeper and helping those who need help. And he has said that he has started his by a determination to try and establish about 100 schools over the next 10 years, train teachers, bring back a strong curriculum, a robust curriculum that will teach our children strong ethical values. Maybe other people can take other pieces. Some people can go to the hospitals and the clinics and help to improve and empower them. Some people need to take a whole lot of education to different parts of Nigeria, where they say there's about 12 to 14 million children who are out of school. This simply is unacceptable. Others may want to help to bring back ethics and ethical values and proper orientation in Nigeria. Others may want to invest in various economic activities of Nigeria, food sustainability and things like that. But I think everybody should register to have a permanent voter's card so that you can exercise voting rights and your civic duty and know right from wrong and be involved in the process of leadership selection in Nigeria one way or the other. Join a political party if you want and be the voice of truth and the voice of reason in that party, ensuring that practices that are unacceptable are unacceptable. Dr. Okey, where do we go from here as a nation? What would you recommend that we do? If you were president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, what would you do to bring about a new and strong and vibrant Nigeria?
Okay, what I'll do may sound rather simplistic, but it is a starting point. And I always go back to what I started with when I, acknowledged your efforts, that we need to start what I call a moral rearmament of our country. Moral rearmament, that is the key word. How do we begin to imbibe, especially in our children, the reason to become good citizens?
The SBA loan that I thought in December.
And
could you please mute your microphone, please? Go ahead, please. Okay.
And in so doing, it's a long process. The damage is intrinsically. Where do I start? The damage to our psyche, our infrastructure, our humanness is devastating, to the point where I do not see this country recovering in the next 50 years. It will take a long process. And we have to start the process from the bottom. The top is messed up. Coming from top to the bottom, I was on TV for 2 hours talking on AIT about my book. Incidentally, it happened during the period when we had the burning down, the crisis. I mean, if you're angry and you get up and you go out on the streets and you burn and loot somebody's shop, it's a misplaced aggression. I went to the University of Nigeria in Nsukka. We had demonstrations. We never burnt any shops in town. They waved at us and gave us water. We never burnt government offices. We were just going around and peacefully demonstrating. We got some tear gas in our eyes and noses and faces. We endured, but we made life uncomfortable for government. But the situation is that the children that we think are our future are as decadent as the leaders. I'm sorry to say it, including my own children. They don't understand the intricacies of life. The whole world is polluted. And I'm sorry that I'm saying it the way it is, but maybe, Pastor, you need to go back to praying more. What is the solution? I do not know. Anybody who comes up and tells you that he has the solution is just deceiving us and deceiving himself. We don't have leadership. We don't have followership. All we have is a world in turmoil, anarchy. And I'm so pessimistic, it's unbelievable.
Do you run for office?
No, no. I don't want to run for office because I don't think we all have to be politicians. Everyone wants to be a leader. If they want, no, why can't we sit back and do certain things that we need to do to help the world? We must all, everybody, you go to my village, everybody wants to be a politician. Traders want to be politicians. Do you know why? Because they go there to steal money.
Exactly.
The place where you go, you don't have to work. You get out in the morning, you pick up your pen, and look at our legislators. One of the key things we did at the conference 2014 was we addressed the issue of the cost of governance. It was extensive. How do you pay somebody 20 million naira a month? What is he doing? To be a legislator? And then you pay a professor less than 200,000 a month. In what country, in what world are we living? You know, so the cost of governance, it is so huge. Money that should be diverted into infrastructural development, into education, for goodness sake. Into education. We're using it to pay all the, you know, the politicians who are, most of them are thieves. I'm not afraid to say it. I will say it to their faces when I see them individually and even collectively. What are they doing? Look at our country, it's so run down. It's so run down that the only thing you can do is bend your head in shame. Bend your head in shame. Have you driven from Onitsha to Enugu? You will not believe that you are in the world. Even roads in the darkest part of Africa are not as bad. Then Enugu to Port Harcourt to Onitsha again. That triangle, the bedrock of the oil industry. You cannot drive on those roads. There's no water in my village. There's no light. The education is dead. And then we have a federal government that takes 50, 60% of the revenue. What are they using it for? I mean, you know, we can continue talking forever. We can continue preaching forever. And we should stop looking up to the politicians to redeem us from our shame, because they have no capacity. They don't have the intention to do so. And this is just what I know. And this is what I see. And, you know, you know me, I could have been governor so many 30 years ago if I wanted to. I could have, because, you know, I think I'm qualified. I have some contacts. I know people. But I ran away from it because I could not see myself being part of what I predicted Nigeria would be: a failed country, a country of anarchy, a kleptocratic country, a country where everybody is hopeless, including myself. So I stayed away from politics. I'm answering your question if I would run for office. I would not run for office. Those who are running for office most of them are highly unqualified. And that is
why we need a lot more qualified people like yourself, like a few people on this platform to actually try and run for office. I think part of why we have this little bit of not so good situation is that when 1999 came, a lot of people who should have been bold enough or inquisitive enough to run for office did not do so for several reasons. Some thought that the political process wouldn't last, others were afraid, others didn't have enough money or resource, and so on. And a lot were really misinformed by those.
I think the stage was set for failure.
Yes.
By those who were entrusted with the duties of forming the political system in Nigeria. Intentionally or you know, stupidly, they set up the stage for the country to fail. Otherwise, you know, listen, the political process was corrupted so badly to the point where if you were seeking for office and you didn't have money, the electoral process disenfranchised you. And that is why you have to go back to restructuring. Because in restructuring, you would find that there are stopgaps put in by the system. Just like in America, Trump, by the 20th of January, will go, whether he likes it or not, because the system is entrenched to make sure that he goes home.
Yes.
Whether he likes it or not, watch my words. But in Nigeria, somebody who didn't contest the election became governor, nothing happened.
Yes, nothing happened. I was reading somewhere that if Trump does not leave the White House will leave him. If he doesn't leave government will move on without him. We'll just find on 20th from 12:05 that he has no car, no security, nobody. He talks to the policeman.
I read on the chat where someone just made a comment that we're going round and round in circle. I would like to hear his opinion if he can speak. I don't know who the person is, but I saw someone said that we're going round and round in circle. Maybe we can hear his opinion and find out why. Let him put us straight so that we stop going round and round in circle. Did you see the chat?
I didn't see that chat, but that's okay.
I think the name
No, but I would like to address that issue. It was me that put it up. My name is Deli Ajufo, if I'm allowed to speak.
I know Jelly. I know. Ajufo, how are you?
Okay.
Yes, a long time.
Okay, let me address this issue. We are not addressing the main issue. The issue that governs Nigeria today is, I was just going to expatiate on it on the chat page before you reacted. Yes. You've spoken well, okay, and you know you and I have been on the same page. Yes. Understand? In 1965, we were those who raised money for I'm not ashamed to say it. I raised money in UK for Biafran War. But I'm not going to address that anymore. The problem we have now is not addressing the tribal nature of our governance in the country today. The EndSARS protests 2 weeks ago on the 20th of, before the 20th of October, has been termed an attempt to bring down Buhari's government by the northern leadership. We are not addressing it. It wasn't an agenda to bring down Buhari's government, but we accepted that nomenclature from the north and nobody's speaking about it. It was not an attempt to bring down any government. These youth were asking for good governance. We are in our mid-70s, for God's sake. We have let these youthful people down.
I'm happy that you're raising that point. No, my situation here is to answer any questions that are put to me. There are just too many.
Let me land, okay? I won't take much time. The other issue is that you attempt to vilify Jonathan or any president. Let us not make our president too strong. We want strong institutions. If a president has the right to implement the confab decisions, we are in trouble. All he had to do was to present it to the National Assembly and we addressed it there. How many of us have trolled our leaders, our members in the House and the Senate to do the needful? My representative does not even care about the bill. We have tried severally to engage him in this discussion. He's not interested. We know how he started. So I'm saying that for now, as a starting point, we must address the issue of electoral reform. It will give us something to hold on to. Electoral reform, where if Ayo Iroche wants to contest for Umuahia's electoral district and we want to vote for him, his vote will count because immediately we vote, it is recorded. Nobody will carry a ballot box. Nobody will change the result. That is where we start. Let us get our members, perhaps ridicule them, harass them to do the needful. Let me not take the time because I know we're 120.
Okay. Let me address one of the issues you raised there. At the conference, we submitted to Jonathan electoral reform, 62 pages. 62 pages. Find time and find it and read it. In that, we addressed all the issues you mentioned here. But I'm not vilifying Jonathan. He just did not have the political will to send the document to National Assembly for approval, for verification, for accent. That's all I said. You know, we addressed all these issues.
Okay, he did, but it was late. He was on his way out. He did.
It was not late. We gave he put the commission together, and we sat for 4 months. It was 3 months. He gave us an extra month, and we gave him the document 9 months before he left office. What could be late? We gave it to Adoke, who dumped it in the trash bin, and they left office without any single thing done with the document. It's not a vilification. It's a statement of fact. You know, Jonathan had his own problems, but he was a good man as well. But on this issue of political restructuring, we addressed all the issues. We went as far as addressing issues that many complain were mundane, but we addressed them and packaged the document, 894 pages, and gave the document to Jonathan. I was part of the process. I'm not speaking as an outsider. I wrote a lot of the things in that document from my experience as somebody who studied a lot of political science, which in my opinion is more pure than physics and chemistry. It is so exact. And we put this stuff together and gave it to Jonathan, gave it to his government, and nothing was done. It could have been implemented in a day, in a week, in 3 weeks. With pressure from the government, we would have a new constitution that would have guided this country to greatness. Nothing was done.
Yeah, this is the issues we keep. And if Delhi says we're going around in circles, the reason is that we need to just agree on something to do going forward. We have a lot of conversations in Nigeria. We know all what we need to do, but the issue is, what are the little steps we take to do these things, and how do we ensure we get for ourselves at some time in the future, or as soon as possible, some government that can do the right thing. You know, if we don't
let me intervene a little bit, because I think we are looking for closure here.
Yes, closure,
and,
some kind of way forward.
Not to end the conference, the platform or whatever, but closure on this issue. For me, we have produced a unique document, a masterclass, a masterpiece, that all we need now is to put pressure on this government. Buhari. He's got 2-3 more years to go. Put pressure on him and say to him, this document you have is there, agreed by all sections of the country. All. No exception. Take it, set up a committee of only 12 people, each to drawn from all the zones, and let them not fine-tune, don't change anything, to report it together and submit it to the National Assembly. Let us wait, and we put pressure on all our members, using the press, using religious organizations, using world bodies, to convince them to implement a new constitution for Nigeria. Once we have a new constitution, all the issues expressed by Delhi and a lot of people on this forum, we would resolve them. It's so simple. We would resolve devolution of power, revenue sharing, so that the man from Rivers knows that he's producing his oil and is getting the majority of the income from it. The man in Sokoto, go and dig up your gold. Let us compete favorably. All the zones, the economy will rebound. And once the economy is in good shape, politics will be okay. You have no reason to go to Abuja again to contest. The criminals will leave the stage for people of good conscience and good sense to take over the running of this country. Make it unattractive for the politicians to go to Abuja to share what does not belong to them. Why do you want to go to Abuja to a man from Bayelsa? He's producing 32% of the oil, and then you go to Abuja to share the income and give him only 13%. Is that fair? Is that equitable? Is that just? Is that a justice? That is my position. Once we get
the sounding no, it's injustice.
Yes, it is. Once you get the politics right, people would relax. Politicians will run away.
Maybe if people are afraid that all that money will go to Delta, a few places, it will make them so powerful, so economically strong, and it will make other parts to click at the shop. I think I've heard this before. We need to catch up. What do you think?
I'm beginning to lose you again, so speak up again.
Did you hear me?
I didn't hear you.
Did you hear me? Did you hear what I said?
Yes.
I said, I think the fear really is that all that money will go just to Bayelsa, Delta, Rivers, and places like that, maybe Akwa Ibom, and then other parts of Nigeria will be deprived, and those parts need to catch up. That is going to take them some time before they can develop their own natural resource. And therefore, in the meantime, they are all impoverished. Maybe that is really the fear. What should be our response or result to that? How can you ameliorate that fear of other people thinking one day they wake up and have no resource at all?
For people who read our constitution, if you look at section 162, I think it's section 162 of the so-called 1999 constitution, I believe is a negation of the principle of fiscal federalism because of the undue preponderance of power vested in the central government to distribute money. It's unnecessary to do that. Why would we not go back to the regional arrangements that we had in 1963, where everybody went back to their region, produced what they had to produce? Very soon, this oil would become non-existent. Let us go back to our regions, work hard. What you get from your region, you share. Once that is done, you will notice that these lazy politicians who carry their bags to Abuja from Sokoto, from Akwa Ibom, from all over the country, they would cease to exist. They would cease to exist. I don't have any fear about the consequences of going back to the 1963 arrangement, whereby you produce and use what you have. You give a little to the center for central defense, for external affairs, just a little bit, not much. 10%, 20%, that's enough for them. And you make politics unattractive for the thieves. That's what I think.
Okay, no problem. The only little missing piece is, do you do it fiat overnight, and then all of a sudden, some people have been getting 10%, 5%, 20% of revenue, on suddenly gets.
No, they won't get zero. I can't hear you anymore. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Some people only get enjoying the oil, saying the oil money should go back to.
Can you hear me? Yes, I can. Can you
hear
me?
To Delta Biafra.
Yeah,
I can hear you. Okay.
But do you realize?
Go ahead.
Do you realize that in Zamfara alone,
yes,
alone today, they can generate every month $500 million to $1 billion from the excavation of gold. So there's no reason to be afraid. And let me tell you, I was on the board of Nigerian Coal Corporation 30 years ago. Babangida appointed me as a board member. And when we went to Enugu, we did something radical. I mean, we had old board members. I probably was maybe about 32 years old. I was young, out of graduate school, a lot of things in my head. And we found out, let me tell you, this is so interesting. We found out that in Enugu, we were about 8 or 9 board members, but I was very active on the board, that they had something called coking coal from Lafiobi in Kogi, all the way into Enugu to Anambra State. The quality of this coal, you know, they use coal for heating homes, for the furnaces in the steel industry all over the world. The quality of this coal was the best in the world because we did our research. All we needed was just a few grants so that we can dig up this coal. Coal wasn't on the ground, it was on the surface. We can dig up this coal, bring it to Enugu, where we had a washing plant, process them, transport them to Port Harcourt, to One, and export.
Again.
What did we not have? We did not have the rail line to do the transportation. We did not have a well-dredged port at One to allow for economy of scale vessels, 50,000, 60,000 metric ton vessels to come and take this coal. We were going to create almost 2 million jobs of all categories in the coal industry. And we did a report. Are you hearing me? Can you hear me? Okay.
We're hearing you.
Yes.
We're hearing you.
Okay,
Yes.
we did a report. I championed it. We got some Americans. They came, we did this report.
I'm sure some of us are still hearing you.
Okay, good. And from Enugu, this coal alone, we're going to build a rail track. We're going to dredge the port in One. We were going to create a new washing plant. We were going to generate 2 million jobs, 2 million jobs. And the income then was over $20 billion every year. $20 billion. The coal is still there. The request is still there. People are still using coal in all the steel industries in Brazil, in America, all over the world. And they're looking for, because of environmental pollution, looking for the kind of coal that we had. Low sulfur, low ash. We presented this paper to government and said, give us funding to do this, or privatize the industry and put it in private hands. They refused to do all the things that I mentioned. Nothing happened. The coal is still in the grounds. My brothers and sisters, if Anambra, Enugu, Ebonyi, Kogi, and Benue can put their resources together as a zone and exploit coal, $20 billion a year, do they need oil from Bayelsa? No. It's very simple. We do not have the leadership to implement all these ideas. Nigerians are the most brilliant people in the world, but our leaders and some of the followers are grossly incompetent.
But why can't the Anambra, Kogi, and Benue come together and do this thing?
Why can't you?
Inclusive.
Anambra, Kogi, and Benue that you mentioned, why can't they come
They
together?
They do not own the coal because we do not have a restructured federation. The coal belongs to the Ministry of Mineral Resources. How can they do it? Who will give them the authority? The minister from Abuja? Maybe it's from Zamfara. So that is the problem. That is our problem. And the problems are there and the solutions are very simple.
So it's not his business. That is our problem.
Oh, thank you.
So I guess the issue is to really work out how to really restructure and bring about this true federalism. Okay, Chike Ogea is on the platform. Please, one quick comment or last question, and then we must round up.
Another good friend of mine. You packed them here today.
Okay, it was.
We have mutual friends, okay? And you know that we're close like that too.
Yes.
I know Okay from long ago is my big brother, and he's a friend I have always been very proud of. You know, he has spoken truth to a lot of the issues. Of course, you must know that by virtue of where I come from, I'm basically on the same page with him on all he has said, and particularly what keeps aching my mind and a lot of people from Asaba was what he alluded to in passing when he spoke about the Asaba massacre.
You are almost a child soldier.
Yes, I was about 4 then when the war broke out. We were living in Benin. My mom was from the western part of the country, and she had the option of taking myself and my 2 sisters to her parents in Ibadan. But she said no, wherever her husband was going, she would go. And she took us first to a house in Asaba, and then we spent the night, managed to put everything we had in that massive house my father had just built. I remember as a child, I had this little car I had parked under the stairs, and all I was interested was in driving that car, and I didn't know what they were saying. But the next day, very early in the morning, we got into 2 of the cars and started what obviously was a 30-month sojourn into the East. My father went, you see, these friendships we have, it's always been there. There was a gentleman called Chief Dom Wosu. He lived in Okey then. His children, I'm sure we all know, Nkechi used to be the legal advisor of Diamond Bank for a long time. And we moved into their house. They were friends in Benin. You know, I remember they used to go to each other's houses and all of that. And we spent some time with them. And the way the war was that the advancing federal troops were coming from Benin. So you kept running. And after a while, both families fused and we ran away. And that was the reason why most likely my parents were not killed, because there is no family in Asaba that did not lose a family member. Because when the federal forces came into Asaba, they said women, children should come out, and men, and welcome them. We wore our okwacha, which is the white cloth we wear, singing for them. They separated the women and then took the men, and then they started killing them just like that, randomly. And that was, you know, what was aptly called blood on the Niger. Until today, that's the point I want to make, because I know time is fast spent. I don't like getting emotional about it. Nobody has even acknowledged from all the federal governments we've had from Gowon till now, that operation was supposed to have been carried out by Murtala Mohammed and Colonel Taiwo. Yes, Ibrahim Taiwo was the one operational guy there, and nobody acknowledged it. And it has not been acknowledged, and of course, no apology has been made. So what kind of healing are we talking about until that is done? That is just from the perspective of just that little area of Delta Igbos called Asaba. You know, of course, we have Igbuzo, we have Okpanam. And I think from the little I know, that maybe why this thing happened in Asaba was that Nzogu was from a little town, you know, 2 minutes from Asaba called Okpanam. And of course, you know, everybody put the blame of that 66 school on Nzogu. And I think that was what made us, as we were at that time, victims of that kind of atrocity. That was a terrible genocide. And I think it has to be resolved for Nigeria to go forward. That's just my thinking about it.
Thank you, Chike.
Yeah.
Chike, you haven't read my book. You have to get it.
No, I haven't. I must confess.
The Asaba massacre. And I believe last week, my wife, who's a member of a book club of over 60 women, they invited me and I spoke to them for about an hour with Kim Bello, Sage's wife, mostly Nigerian women. I mean, have you seen women weeping and crying? Some couldn't come to the Zoom meeting because they found it to be distressing. I talked about the Asaba massacre. It's an emotional thing, and I cried. You know, they killed over 1,240 innocent people who did nothing, simply because they were Igbo, and left their bodies to be eaten by vultures. The picture is in my book. You see dead bodies on the road being devoured by vultures. These were human beings. These were human beings. And then you read the book, you see how they killed my grandmother. She was 86 years old. They put a bullet in her skull and left her to die and burnt her in a small bungalow in Okey. Read my book. And the healing, for me, my friends are Yorubas, Hausas, Ijaws, name them, Midwesterners. Itwa is my friend. My wife, her father, Chike, you know, was a top member of Gowon's administration. But I loved my father-in-law. I loved everybody. We have forgiven people who did this to us because we are true Christians. I mean, but Nigeria, have you people forgiven us for doing nothing? What did we do? Nothing. So now, Daddy said we are running around in circles. We are not. These are points that, please, I'm not advertising this book. I have sold thousands. This book is a bestseller, it's reverberating all over the world. Please go and buy it, buy 100 copies and give it to people in your village, because that becomes the healing point. If you read the book, I started from 1960 all the way to 1970 when the war ended. My personal experience that I've never shared with anybody but my children and my wife. And it's gory, it's gruesome that a 13-year-old boy who was born, excuse me to use that language, into luxury, I had my own room, we had several cars, we had servants, was eating rats and lizards and vegetables and leaves that had no name just to survive. And you see the pictures of children that died of starvation, yet Nigeria moved on like nothing happened.
Yeah, I think happened.
The only apology was to give us 20 pounds after the war. 20 pounds for what? And then they quickly did what they called indigenization. My father was part of the 6 people that brought ESO to Nigeria. ESO, that became Unipetrol. He had over 24 filling stations all over Nigeria. He lost everything. He lost his manhood. He lost his prestige. He lost his confidence. He's just one out of millions of people. Yet we have rebounded. I live in Ikoyi, Lagos. Chika, I'm sure you live somewhere luxurious. I've been to your home several times. And we are existing, but they should bloody hell leave us alone. They should leave us alone to become Nigerians, to become who we want to be. In my book, I did not make a mention of IPOP or Kanu, and it was intentional because people they seized the book when it came into Nigeria. I had 30,000 copies at the port. Because some people saw it and said, oh, Biafra. I wrote them just one simple letter. If you don't release my book in 2 days, I would let the world know. And they did. And the book is selling, people are buying. Please go and read this book. It would help us to heal.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, okay? And I want to really thank you for everything today. Let me take that as your closing comments, except if you have any other quick closing comments you want to take. I want to thank everybody that has been on the platform from all over Nigeria. I like to believe people also from the diaspora. I am not going to mention any names again today so that I don't get into problem, but I want to thank you. I see everybody, very, very distinguished Nigerians. I think the action points are as follows. Let everybody contribute to governance by helping those who they can help, like Okey is doing, refurbishing schools, empowering teachers, empowering people. Let us all do what we can in our own little corner. Number two, let us try and read get it back on Nigeria. Number three, let us look at true federalism, pressure on government, whatever government there, to the report from 2014, 800 back.
Okay. Can you said I could say something to close? Can you hear me, Itwa? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
I want to thank everyone. I mean, it's not easy to have people leave whatever they're doing to come and listen to people like us, sometimes boring, sometimes emotional. I want to thank Itwa. I thank the African Leadership Group. I thank everyone that spoke up here today. Please pardon me if I said something that offended your sensibility. I was just expressing my mind, my opinion, and these are just my opinion. And in closing, I want to say that if you have spent just one day in a trench, under the rain, under the sun, hunger in your stomach, fear in your heart, you would never want to be in another war. And in war, nobody wins. Nigeria did not win that war. Biafra did not lose a war. Otherwise, why are we talking now? If Nigeria won that war, why do we have Boko Haram fighting and kidnappers killing people up and down? Nobody won that war. So we should never fight another war. And the way not to fight another war is to restructure the country, is to implement a true federal government that gives equity, peace, justice to everyone, regardless of your tribe or religion or affinities. Thank you very much, gentlemen and ladies.
Thank you very much, Dr. Okey Anueyiagu. Thank you so much for being on this platform. I really, really appreciate you. And I look forward to us sitting down together when you are back from Atlanta, or maybe if I need to come to Atlanta to see you so that we can deepen this discussion and then see what we can do to make Nigeria a much better and a much nicer place. I pray that the good Lord will bless you, will look after you, will strengthen you, your lovely wife, Adiza, and these very beautiful children, 5 of them that God has given you. And they'll all grow up to be truly, truly outstanding Nigerians. Or let anyone.
Thank you.
Down in the name of Jesus Christ. So give my leader, thank you for keeping the technology flowing. And we do apologize for the hitches that we had on the platform. We look forward to seeing you all next week. Next week, same time, 5 o'clock, we'll be discussing yet another robust topic on the issue of taking Nigeria forward. From all of us at the African Leadership Group, We thank you for staying faith with the Nigerian Leadership Series. God bless you all. God bless Nigeria, and God make Nigeria great again. In
Thank
Jesus.
you. Thank you.
God bless you all. Thank you. See you next week. Thank you.
Thank you.
God
Thank
bless
you.
Thank you, Pastor.
Thank you,
Thank you
Pastor
very much.
Itwa.
Thank you very much.
Okay, this is Terry. Please get in touch.
Thank you, Pastor Itwa.
I left my phone on the platform. Just get in touch.
Thank you, Pastor Itwa. Nice to see
Thank
you.
you. Thank you very much. God bless you. Thank you. Thank you.
On Amazon.
Bambo, I see you.
Thank you,
very
my
much.
pastor. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Itwa.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Itwa.
I see you, Loretta. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor. God bless
Thank you,
you.
Dennis.
God bless you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Have a safe flight to Benin.
I think the flight is gone, but that's okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Itwa.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.